Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Understanding Business 2024. Chapter 10. Narrated by Omar Mohsen Ibrahim Fouad. Part 4. Management of Human Resources. Motivating employees to produce quality goods and services. Chapter 10. Motivating Employees. Page 249. Learning Objectives. After you have read and studied this chapter, you should be able to explain Taylor's theory of scientific management, describe the Hawthorne studies and their significance to management, identify the levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and apply them to employee motivation, distinguish between the motivators and hygiene factors identified by Herzberg, differentiate among theory X, theory Y, and theory Z, explain the key principles of goal setting, expectancy, and equity theories, show how managers put motivation theories into action through such strategies as job enrichment, open communication, and job recognition, show how managers personalize motivation strategies to appeal to employees across the globe and across generations. Page 250. Getting to know Lauren Sirota, head of talent at Patagonia. While most American offices keep a closet or two stocked with essential supplies, Patagonia's California headquarters is perhaps one of the few workplaces in the country with a room full of surfboards. Employees have been known to grab their board, consult the daily wave reports, and then hit the water during lunch. If they don't feel like surfing, they can take a 30-mile bike ride through the mountains. Along with these outdoorsy perks, Patagonia employees also enjoy on-site childcare at both the California and Nevada campuses, paid vacations, and complete healthcare coverage. According to Head of Talent, Performance, Compensation, and Learning Lauren Sirota, this generous package of benefits boosts productivity and improves morale for the entire company, not just a few fortunate executives. Along with overseeing compensation and continuing education among employees, Sirota regularly talks to staffers about their feelings toward the company and its purpose. You can't force purpose, said Sirota. I think you really have to tap into employees' values and what's important to them. Figuring out what's going on in someone's head is a challenging task, of course, which is a lesson Sirota learned at a very young age. When she was around 7 years old, Sirota was diagnosed with a learning challenge that doctors at the time claimed would cause major setbacks and would result in Sirota struggling in her formative years at school. Sirota was told she would aim low in any career that required a higher level of intelligence and possibly attend a college with programs specifically for those with severe disabilities and or people with special needs. These pessimistic assessments of her abilities made lasting impressions on Sarota, but the experience also gave her a strong determination to forge her own way into the world. But the experience also gave her a strong determination to forge her way. But the experience also gave her a strong determination to forge her own way in the world. No matter what anyone else said, Sarota proved her doubters wrong when she graduated from prestigious Sarah Lawrence College with a bachelor's degree in political science, which she then followed with a master's degree in international affairs from Columbia University, an Ivy League school. Sarota used her globally focused education to land consulting jobs with the World Bank and other organizations, where she worked with local governments in areas affected by natural disasters. While also developing social and economic reform plans. After earning yet another degree, a Master's of Science from New York University, she eventually became the World Bank's Senior Program Manager. She took charge of the organization's global executive leadership and talent development programs. Her work concentrated on offering loans to people in less developed countries in an effort to improve their overall economic conditions. This put Sarota in regular contact with many people around the world, instilling a passion for empowering others that she took to Patagonia in 2019. Working with this environmentally conscious apparel company turned out to be like nothing else she had experienced in her career so far. What I'm challenged by every day is that I have to literally unlearn all the things that I have learned before, said Sarota. So what might have worked prior in my career might not necessarily work at Patagonia, because we strive to be an inclusive and equitable culture. One of her great passions at the company is its on-site child care centers, which provide Patagonia employees with some of the most generous caretaker benefits available. Having affordable, convenient childcare is an important tool in attracting and retaining employees. In addition to childcare, Patagonia also has a 2-month paid environmental internship program, activism hours where employees can volunteer at a nonprofit or organization of their choice, and a specific bail policy in which Patagonia will bail employees out of jail for their activism efforts. According to Sarota, this sense of organizational purpose should be generated from the bottom up and include a recognition that what Patagonia asks of employees is equally what puts back into employees' lives. In fact, founder Yvon Chouinard made this point abundantly clear in 2022 when he and his family transferred ownership of Patagonia to a nonprofit trust that will use all excess funds to combat climate change. By caring for the well-being of the planet as well as its employees, Patagonia sets the standard for companies that hope to provide a prosperous future for humans around the world. In this chapter, you'll learn about the theories and practices that managers like Lauren Sarota use in motivating their employees to focus on goals common to them and the organization. Sources: Grace Dean, Patagonia's founder, just gave the company away. Business Insider, businessinsider.com, September 22nd, 2022. Jason Atten, Patagonia's 5-word explanation of why it's closing its stores and giving employees a week off. inc.com. December 24th, 2021. Forgient special interview with Patagonia. Video, YouTube, youtube.com. January 1st, 2020. David Gels, billionaire no more. Patagonia founder gives away the company. The New York Times, nytimes.com. September 14th, 2022. Lauren Sirota. LinkedIn, linkedin.com. Accessed March 2023. Patagonia, patagonia.com. Accessed March 2023. Courtesy of Lauren Sirota and Patagonia. Page 251. Name that company. This company offers over 100 employee recognition programs and awards. One of its most special awards is the Spirit of Fred, which honors an employee found to be especially friendly, resourceful, enthusiastic, and dependable. Name that company. Find the answer in the chapter. The value of motivation. If work is such fun, how come the rich don't do it? Quipped comedian Groucho Marx. Well, the rich do work. Jeff Bezos didn't make his billions reading books and shopping online. And workers can have fun if managers make the effort to motivate them. It's difficult to overstate the importance of employees' job satisfaction. Happy staff can lead to happy customers, and happy customers lead to successful businesses. On the other hand, unhappy staff are likely to leave. When that happens, the company usually loses more than an experienced employee. It can also lose the equivalent of 6 to 9 months' salary to cover the costs of recruiting and training a replacement. Even replacing hourly employees can be costly. In some cases, it can cost the company over $1,500 to replace a single hourly employee. Other costs of losing employees are even greater. Loss of intellectual capital, decreased morale of remaining workers, increased employee stress, increased employee gossip, decreased customer service, interrupted product development, and a poor reputation. The Spotlight on Small Business box discusses how, following the pandemic and the Great Resignation, companies are trying to establish the era of the Great Retention. Spotlight on Small Businesses. Open. Spotlight on Small Businesses. Turning the Great Resignation into the Great Retention. Tens of millions of Americans left their jobs during what's been called the Great Resignation, the period during and immediately following the COVID-19 pandemic. Though these workers quit for a variety of reasons, lack of motivation and burnout ranked high. While some of this could be seen as part of the aftermath following the COVID-19 pandemic, others took the opportunity to leave jobs where they felt unappreciated or unable to progress through the ranks. In fact, a survey from PEW Research found that 63% of employees felt their career paths had slowed to a crawl or halted completely. These unsettled staffers were more likely to look for greener pastures elsewhere, thus leaving companies on the hook for the costly process of onboarding new employees. Obviously, employers are trying to combat further moves. Companies can reduce employee turnover by being more transparent about available career paths, fostering a culture of learning, and just allowing time for fun in the workplace. Managers are hoping that by doing these things, they're creating a turnaround that flips the great resignation into the great retention. Business leaders are providing more of what their employees are looking for in today's world, including embracing hybrid work environments, encouraging employees to be more autonomous, and respecting the work-life balance boundaries put in place by workers. This can further decrease stress, potentially giving staffers with wandering eyes more reasons to stay. Nuthawut, Sumsuk, and iStock, and Getty Images Plus, and Getty Images. Sources: T.H. Herbert, Improving Employee Retention in 2023 with a Positive Workplace Culture. Forbes, Forbes.com, March 8th, 2023. Chase Charaba, Employee Retention, The Real Cost of Losing an Employee. Peoplekeep.com, February 2nd, 2023. Ellen Rosen, In an Uncertain Job Market, How Can Companies Retain Workers? The New York Times, NewYorkTimes.com, NYTimes.com. February 13th, 2023. Matt Smith, How to Support Employees and Improve Retention with a Strong Company Culture. Entrepreneur.com. February 15th, 2023. A refocus on the hybrid working technology experience is now critical to employee satisfaction and retention. CIO.com, March 8th, 2023. While it's costly to recruit and train new employees, it's also expensive to retain current employees who are disengaged. The word engagement is used to describe employees' level of motivation, passion, and commitment. Engaged employees work with passion, feel a connection to their company, and are often more productive. They also help increase company profits. Gallup found that companies with highly engaged employees reported 23% more profitability. Disengaged workers, however, have essentially checked out. They give the company their time, but not their energy or enthusiasm. Not only will they act out their unhappiness at work, but disengaged employees undermine the efforts of their coworkers. Another Gallup survey estimated that actively disengaged workers cost companies around 18% of those workers' salaries and the U.S. economy about $450 to $500 billion a year in lost productivity. Fizkes and Shutterstock. One important type of motivator is intrinsic inner rewards, which include the personal satisfaction you feel for a job well done. People who respond to such inner promptings often enjoy their work and share their enthusiasm with others. Are you more strongly motivated by your own desire to do well, or by extrinsic rewards like pay and recognition? Many managers today are focusing beyond employee engagement as they realize the importance of facilitating a positive employee experience. Employee experience is the level of satisfaction at every step along an employee's path throughout their time with a company. It begins at recruitment and continues all the way through to offboarding. See Chapter 11. Every experienced job seekers or employees have with the company. Every experience job seekers or employees have with the company, their coworkers, and the team management has an influence on their satisfaction. Even a highly engaged employee can have a negative employee experience. For example, an employee who enjoys designing may be very engaged in a particular design project, but may not be satisfied with the company overall. Such employees will be shopping for a job elsewhere. Such employees will be shopping for a job somewhere else. Motivating the right people to join the organization and stay with it is a key function of managers. Top performing managers are usually surrounded by top performing employees. It is no coincidence that geese fly faster in formation than alone. Although the desire to perform well ultimately comes from within. Good managers stimulate people and bring out their natural drive to do a good job. People are willing to work and work hard. If they feel their work makes a difference and is appreciated. Page 252. People are motivated by a variety of things such as recognition, accomplishment, and status. An intrinsic reward is the personal satisfaction you feel when you perform well and complete goals. The belief that your work makes a significant contribution to the organization or to society is a form of intrinsic reward. An extrinsic reward is given to you by someone else as recognition for good work. Pay raises, acknowledgments, and promotions are extrinsic rewards. This chapter will help you understand the concepts, theories, and practice of motivation. We begin with a look at some traditional theories of motivation. Why should you learn about these theories? Because sometimes new approaches aren't really new. Variations of them have been tried in the past. Knowing what has been tried before will help you see what has worked and what hasn't. First, we discuss scientific management and its effect on productivity, and then the Hawthorne studies because they created a new interest in worker satisfaction and motivation. Then we look at some assumptions about employees that come from the traditional theorists. You will see the names of these theorists over and over in business literature and future courses. Taylor, Mayo, Maslow, Herzberg, and McGregor. Finally, we'll introduce modern motivation theories and show you how managers apply them. Page 253. LO 10-1. Explain Taylor's theory of scientific management. Frederick Taylor, the father of scientific management. Several 19th century thinkers presented management principles, but not until the early 20th century did any work with lasting implications appear. Several 19th century thinkers presented management principles, but not until the early 20th century did any work with lasting implications appear. The Principles of Scientific Management was written by U.S. efficiency engineer Frederick Taylor and published in 1911, earning Taylor the title Father of Scientific Management. Taylor's goal was to increase worker productivity to benefit both the firm and the worker. The solution, he thought, was to scientifically study the most efficient ways to do things, determine the single best way to perform each task, and then teach others those methods. This approach became known as scientific management. Three elements were basic to Taylor's approach: time, methods, and rules of work. His most important tools were observation and the stopwatch. Taylor's thinking lies behind today's measures of how many burgers McDonald's expects its cooks to flip every hour. A classic Taylor story describes his study of workers shoveling rice, coal, and iron ore with the same type of shovel, believing different materials called for different shovels. He proceeded to invent a wide variety of sizes and shapes of shovels, and, stopwatch in hand, measured output over time in what were called time motion studies. These were studies of the tasks performed in a job and the time needed for each. Sure enough, an average person could shovel 25 to 35 tons more per day using the most efficient motions and the proper shovel. This finding led to the time motion studies of virtually every factory job. As researchers determined the most efficient ways of doing things, efficiency became the standard for setting goals. Taylor's scientific management became the dominant strategy for improving productivity in the early 1900s. One follower of Taylor was Henry L. Gantt, who developed charts by which managers plotted the work of employees a day in advance down to the smallest detail. See Chapter 9 for a discussion of Gantt charts. Use engineers Frank and Lillian Gilbreth used Taylor's ideas in a 3-year study of bricklaying. They developed the principle of motion economy, showing how every job could be broken into a series of elementary motions called a Thurblig. Gilbreth spelled backwards, with the T and H transposed. They then analyzed each motion to make it more efficient. Daniel Acker and Bloomberg and Getty Images. USPS tells drivers how to get out of their trucks, how fast to walk, how many packages to pick up and deliver per day, and even how to hold their keys. Can you see how UPS follows the principles of scientific management by teaching people the one best way to perform each task? Scientific management viewed people largely as machines that needed to be properly programmed. There was little concern for the psychological or human aspects of work. Taylor believed that workers would perform at a high level of effectiveness, that is, be motivated if they received high enough pay. Some of Taylor's ideas are still in use. Some companies continue to emphasize conformity to work rules rather than creativity, flexibility, and responsiveness. For example, UPS tells drivers how to get out of their trucks with right foot first, how fast to walk, 3 feet per second, how many packages to deliver a day, an average of 150 to 175 in off-peak seasons, and how to hold their keys, teeth up, third finger. Drivers carry a handheld tool called a Delivery Information Acquisition Device, DIAD, to scan barcodes on packages. Introduced in 1991. UPS's DIAD is in its 6th generation and can show a customer where a package is at any given moment through GPS. If a driver is considered slow, a supervisor rides along, prodding the driver with stopwatches and clipboards. UPS has trained UPS has training centers in 9 U.S. cities with simulators that teach employees how to properly lift and load boxes, drive their trucks proficiently, and even lessen the risk of slipping and falling when carrying a package. Page 254. The benefits of relying on workers to come up with solutions to productivity problems have long been recognized, as we shall discover next. LO 10-2. Describe the Hawthorne studies and their significance to management. Elton Mayo in the Hawthorne studies. One study, inspired by Frederick Taylor's research, began at the Western Electric Company's Hawthorne plant in Cicero, Illinois, in 1927 and ended 6 years later. Let's see why it is one of the major studies in management literature. Elton Mayo and his colleagues from Harvard University came to the Hawthorne plant to test the degree of lighting associated with optimum productivity. In this regard, their study was a traditional scientific management study. The idea was to keep records of the workers' productivity under different levels of illumination, but the initial experiments revealed what seemed to be a problem. The researchers had expected productivity to fall as the lighting was dimmed, yet the experimental group's productivity went up regardless of whether the lighting was bright or dim, and even when it was reduced to about the level of moonlight. In a second series of 13 experiments, a separate test room was set up where researchers could manipulate the temperature, humidity, and other environmental factors. Productivity went up each time. In fact, it increased by 50% overall. When the experimenters repeated the original conditions, expecting productivity to fall to original levels, productivity increased yet again. The experiments were considered a total failure at this point. No matter what the experiments did, productivity went up. What was causing the increase? Bettman and Getty Images. Little did Elton Mayo and his research team from Harvard know that their work would forever change managers. Little did Elton Mayo and his research team from Harvard know that their work would forever change managers' beliefs about employee motivation. Little did Elton Mayo and his research team from Harvard know that their work would forever change managers' beliefs about employee motivation. Their research at the Hawthorne plant of Western Electric in Cicero, Illinois, pictured here, gave birth to the concept of human-based motivation by showing that employees behaved differently simply because they were involved in planning and executing the experiments. In the end, Mayo guessed that some human or psychological factor was at play. He and his colleagues interviewed the workers, asking about their feelings and attitudes toward the experiment. The answers began a profound change in management, thinking that Still, the answers began a profound change in management thinking that still has repercussions today. The answers began a profound change in management thinking that still has repercussions today. Here is what the researchers concluded. The workers in the test room thought of themselves as a social group. The atmosphere was informal. They could talk freely, and they interacted regularly with their supervisors and the atmosphere was informal. They could talk freely, and they interacted regularly with their supervisors and the experimenters. They felt special and worked hard to stay in the group. This was a form of motivation for them. The workers were included in planning the experiments. For example, they rejected one kind of pay schedule and recommended another, which was adopted. They believed their ideas were respected and felt engaged in managerial decision making. This too motivated them. No matter the physical conditions, the workers enjoyed the atmosphere of their special room and the additional pay for being more productive. Job satisfaction increased dramatically. Researchers now use the term Hawthorne effect to refer to people's tendency to behave differently when they know they're being studied. The Hawthorne studies results encouraged researchers to study human motivation and the managerial styles that led to higher productivity. Research emphasis shifted from Taylor's scientific management toward Mayo's new human-based management. Page 255. Mayo's findings led to completely new assumptions about employees. One was that pay is not the only motivator. In fact, money was found to be a relatively ineffective motivator. New assumptions led to many theories about the human side of motivation. One of the best known motivation theorists was Abraham Maslow, whose work we discuss next. Motivation and Maslow's hierarchy needs. LO 10-3. Identify the levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and apply them to employee motivation. Psychologist Abraham Maslow believed to be able to understand motivation in the workplace. We first have to understand general human motivation. It seemed to him that motivation arises from need. That is, people are motivated to satisfy unmet needs. Needs that have already been satisfied will no longer provide motivation. Figure 10.1 shows Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whose levels are psychological needs, basic survival needs, such as the need for food, water, and shelter, safety needs, the need to feel secure at work and at home, social needs, the need to feel loved, accepted, and part of the group, esteem needs, the need for recognition and acknowledgement from others, as well as self-respect and a sense of status or importance, self-actualization needs, the need to develop to one's fullest potential. Figure 10.1. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is based on the idea that motivation comes from need. If a need is met, it's no longer a motivator, so a higher level need becomes the motivator. Higher level needs demand the support of lower level needs. This chart shows the various levels of need. Do you know where you are on the chart right now? Self-actualization esteem needs, social needs, safety needs, psychological needs. When one need is satisfied, another higher level need emerges and motivates us to now satisfy it. The previously satisfied need is no longer a motivator. For example, if you just ate a 4-course dinner, hunger would not be a motivator, at least for several hours, and your attention might turn to your surroundings, safety needs, or family social needs. Of course, lower level needs, perhaps thirst, may reemerge at any time they are not being met and take your attention away from higher level needs. To compete successfully, U.S. firms must create a work environment that includes goals such as social contribution, honesty, reliability, service quality, dependability, and unity for all levels of employees. Kerry Siggins, CEO of Stone Age, a tool manufacturer in Durango, Colorado, thinks about higher level needs such as meaning, self-actualization for all employees, including lower-level workers. Siggins works to cultivate a corporate culture full of teamwork and self-pride by focusing on the employees first, instead of just their tasks. Employees are encouraged to think creatively, and experimentation is embraced. This gives more meaning to the work of Stone Age employees and helps satisfy their higher level needs. Page 256. McGraw-Hill Connect. I see it. Need help understanding Maslow's hierarchy? Click on the video for a brief animated explanation. Herzberg's Motivating Factors, LO 10-4. Distinguish between the motivators and hygiene factors identified by Herzberg. Another direction in managerial theories explores what managers can do with a job itself to motivate employees. In other words, some theorists ask, of all the factors controllable by managers, which are most effective in generating an enthusiastic work effort? In the mid-1960s, psychologist Frederick Herzberg conducted the most discussed study in this area. Herzberg asked workers to rank various job-related factors in order of importance relative to motivation. The question was, what creates enthusiasm for workers and makes them work to full potential? The most important factors were 1. Sense of achievement, 2. Earned recognition, 3. Interest in the work itself, 4. Opportunity for growth, 5. Possibility for advancement, 6. Importance of responsibility, 7. Peer and group relationships, 8. Pay, 9. Supervisors' fairness, 10. Company policies and rules, 11. Status, 12. Job security, 13. Supervisors' friendliness, 14. Working conditions. Factors receiving the most votes all focused on job content. Workers like to feel as if they contribute to the company. Sense of achievement was number 1. They want to earn recognition, number 2, and feel their jobs are important, number 6. They want responsibility, which is why learning is so important, and to earn recognition for that responsibility by having a chance for growth and advancement. Of course, workers also want the job to be interesting. Is this the way you feel about your work? Workers did not consider factors related to job environment to be motivators. It was interesting to find that one of those factors was pay. Workers felt the absence of good pay, job security, and friendly supervisors could cause dissatisfaction. But their presence did not motivate employees to work harder. It just provided satisfaction and contentment. Would you work harder if you were only paid more? Page 257. Herzberg concluded that certain factors, which he called motivators, made employees productive and gave them satisfaction. These factors, as you have seen, mostly related to job content. Herzberg called other elements of the job hygiene factors, or maintenance factors. These related to the job environment and could cause dissatisfaction if missing, but would not necessarily motivate employees if increased. See Figure 10.2 for a list of motivators and hygiene factors. Figure 10.2, Herzberg's motivators and hygiene factors. There's some controversy over Herzberg's results. For example, sales managers often use money as a motivator. Recent studies have shown that money can be a motivator if used as part of a recognition or reward program. Motivators. These factors can be used to motivate workers. Work itself, achievement, recognition, responsibility, growth and advancement. Growth and advancement. Hygiene, maintenance factors. These factors can cause dissatisfaction, but changing them will have little motivational effect. Company policy and administration, supervision, working conditions, interpersonal relations, co-workers, salary, status, and job security. Herzberg's motivating factors led to this conclusion. The best way to motivate employees is to make their jobs interesting, help them achieve their objectives, and recognize their achievement through advancement and added responsibility. A review of Figure 10.3 shows the similarity between Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Herzberg's theory. Figure 10.3. Comparison of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and Herzberg's theory of factors. Maslow: self-actualization, esteem, social, safety, psychological. Herzberg: work itself, achievement, possibility of growth, motivation. Advancement, recognition, status, motivational. Advancement, recognition, status, hygiene, maintenance. Interpersonal relations, superior, subordinates, peers, supervision. Hygiene, maintenance. Company policy and administration, job security, working conditions, hygiene, maintenance. Salary, personal life, hygiene, maintenance. Look at Herzberg's motivating factors. Identify those that will motivate you and rank them in your personal order of importance. Keep them in mind as you consider future jobs and careers. What motivators do your job opportunities offer you? Are they the ones you consider important? Evaluating your job offers in terms of what's really important to you will help you make a wise career choice. Test prep. What are the similarities and differences between Taylor's time motion studies and Mayo's Hawthorne studies? How did Mayo's findings influence scientific management? Draw a diagram of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Label and describe the parts. Explain the distinction between what Herzberg called motivators and hygiene factors. Page 258. McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y. LO 10-5. Differentiate among Theory X, Theory Y, and Theory Z. The way managers motivate people at work depends greatly on their attitudes toward workers. Management theorist Douglas McGregor observed that managers' attitudes generally fall into one of two entirely different sets of managerial assumptions, which he called Theory X and Theory Y. Theory X. The assumptions of Theory X management are: the average person dislikes work and will avoid it if possible. Because of this dislike, workers must be forced, controlled, directed, or threatened with punishment to make them put forth the effort to achieve the organization's goals. The average worker prefers to be directed, wishes to avoid responsibility, has relatively little ambition, and wants security. Primary motivators are fear and punishment. The natural consequence of these assumptions is a manager who is very busy and watches people closely, telling them what to do and how to do it. Motivation is more likely to take the form of a punishment for bad work instead of a reward for good work. Theory X managers give their employees little responsibility, authority, or flexibility. Taylor and other theorists who preceded him would have agreed with Theory X. Time motion studies calculated the one best way to perform a task and the optimal time to devote to it. Researchers assumed workers needed to be trained and carefully watched to see that they conform. Researchers assumed workers needed to be trained and carefully watched to see that they conformed to standards. Robert Galbraith and Reuters and News.com. Theory X managers don't live to make their employees happy. For example, Charlie Ergen, the co-founder and chair of Dish Network, makes employees work long hours and a whole lot of mandatory overtime with few paid holidays. Employees describe the Ergen created company culture as one of the Employees describe the Ergen created company culture as one of condescension and distrust. Yet the company's earnings have consistently outpaced market expectations. Would you prefer to work for a Theory X or a Theory Y manager? Many managers and entrepreneurs still suspect that employees cannot be fully trusted and need to be closely supervised. No doubt you have seen such managers in action. How did they make you feel? Were these managers' assumptions accurate regarding workers' attitudes? Theory Y. Theory Y makes entirely different assumptions about people. Most people like work. It is as natural as play or rest. Most people naturally work toward goals to which they are committed. The depth of a person's commitment to goals depends on the perceived rewards for achieving them. Under certain conditions, most people not only accept but also will seek responsibility. People are capable of using a relatively high degree of imagination, creativity, and cleverness to solve problems. In industry, the average person's intellectual potential is only partially realized. People are motivated by a variety of rewards. Each worker is stimulated by a reward unique to them: time off, money, recognition, and so on. Rather than authority, direction, and close supervision, Theory Y managers emphasize a relaxed managerial atmosphere in which workers are free to set their own objectives, be creative, be flexible, and go beyond the goals set by management. A key technique here is empowerment, giving employees authority to make decisions and tools to implement the decisions they make. For empowerment to be a real motivator, management should follow these 3 steps. Page 259. 1. Find out what employees think the problems in the organizations are. 2. Let them design the solutions. 3. Get out of the way and let them put those solutions into action. Often employees complain that although they're asked to engage in company decision-making, their managers fail to actually empower them to make decisions. Have you ever worked in such an atmosphere? How did that make you feel? Ouchie's Theory Z. One reason many American companies choose a more flexible managerial style is to meet competition from firms in Japan, China, and the European Union. In the 1980s, Japanese companies seemed to be outperforming American businesses. William Auchi, management professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, wondered if the reason was the way Japanese companies managed their workers. The Japanese approach, which Auchi called Type J, included lifetime employment, consensual decision-making, collective responsibility for the outcomes of decisions, slow evaluation and promotion, implied control mechanisms, non-specialized career paths, and holistic concern for employees. In contrast, the American management approach, which Auchi called Type A, relied on short-term employment, individual decision-making, individual responsibility for the outcomes of decisions, rapid evaluation and promotion, explicit control mechanisms, specialized career paths, and segmented concern for employees. Type J firms are based on the culture of Japan, which includes a focus on trust and intimacy within the group and family. Conversely, Type A firms are based on American culture, which includes a focus on individual rights and achievements. Auchi wanted to help American firms adopt successful Japanese strategies, but he realized it wouldn't be practical to expect American managers to accept an approach based on the culture of another country. Judge for yourself. A job for life may sound good until you think of the implications. No chance to change jobs, and no opportunity to move quickly through the ranks. Auchi recommended a hybrid approach. Theory Z, see Figure 10.4. Theory Z includes long-term employment, collective decision-making, individual responsibility for the outcomes of decisions, slow evaluation and promotion, moderately specialized career paths, and holistic concern for employees, including family. Theory Z views the organization as a family that fosters cooperation and organizational values. Figure 10.4. Theory Z, a blend of American and Japanese management approaches. Type A, American. 1. Short-term employment. 2. Individual decision-making. 3. Individual responsibility. 4. Rapid evaluation and promotion. 5. Explicit formalized control. 6. Specialized career paths. 7. Segmented concern for employees. Type Z, modified American. 1. Long-term employment. 2. Collective decision-making. 3. Individual responsibility. 4. Slow evaluation and promotion. 5. Implicit and formal control with explicit formalized control. 6. Moderately specialized career paths. 9. Holistic concern for employees, including family. Type J, Japanese. 1. Lifetime employment. 2. Consensual decision-making. 3. Collective responsibility. 4. Slow evaluation and promotion. 5. Implicit and formal control. 6. Non-specialized career paths. 7. Holistic concern for employees. Page 260. In recent years, demographic and social changes, fierce global competition, and economic changes have led Japanese managers to reevaluate the way they conduct business. Lucy Nicholson and Reuters and Alamy Stock Photo. Although Google has cut back on some benefits, employees still enjoy a variety of perks, from comprehensive medical plans to state-of-the-art gyms to free gourmet meals at cafeterias like the one shown here. Can you think of any other examples of the kind of holistic concern for employees suggested by William Algie's Theory Z style of management? Electronics giant Hitachi was the first major Japanese company to quit requiring corporate calisthenics, having everyone start the day with group exercises had symbolized doing the same thing the same way and reinforced the cultural belief that employees should not take risks or think for themselves. Many managers think such conformity is what hurt Japanese business. Will Japanese managers move toward the hybrid theory Z in the future? We'll have to wait and see. An appropriate managerial style matches the culture, situation, and specific needs of the organization and its employees. See Figure 10.5 for a summary of theories X, Y, and Z. Figure 10.5, a comparison of theories X, Y, and Z. Theory X, Theory Y, Theory Z. Theory X. 1. Employees dislike work and will try to avoid it. 2. Employees prefer to be controlled and directed. 3. Employees seek security, not responsibility. 4. Employees must be intimidated by managers to perform. 5. Employees are motivated by financial rewards. Theory Y. 1. Employees view work as a natural part of life. 2. Employees prefer limited control and direction. 3. Employees will seek responsibility under proper work conditions. 4. Employees perform better in work environments that are non-intimidating. 5. Employees are motivated by many different needs. Theory Z. 1. Employee involvement is the key to increased productivity. 2. Employee control is implied and informal. 3. Employees prefer to share responsibility and decision-making. 4. Employees perform better in environments that foster trust and cooperation. 5. Employees need guaranteed employment and will accept slow evaluations and promotions. Goal setting, theory, and management by objectives. LO 10-6 explain the key principles of goal setting, expectancy, and equity theories. Goal setting theory says setting ambitious but attainable goals can motivate workers and improve performance if the goals are accepted and accompanied by feedback, and if conditions in the organization pave the way for achievement. All organization members should have some basic agreement about both overall goals and specific objectives for each department and individual. Therefore, there should be a system to engage everyone in the organization in goal setting and implementation. The late management expert Peter Drucker developed such a system in the 1960s. Managers cannot motivate people. They can only thwart people's motivation because people motivate themselves, he said. called Management by OBJ, called Management by Objectives, MBO. Drucker's system of goal setting and implementation includes a cycle of discussion, review, and evaluation of objectives among top and middle level managers, supervisors, and employees. It calls on managers to formulate goals in cooperation with everyone in the organization, to commit employees to those goals, and to monitor results and reward accomplishment. Government agencies like the Department of Defense use MBO. MBO is most effective in relatively stable situations when managers can make long-range plans and implement them with few changes. MBO is most effective in relatively stable situations when managers can make long-range plans and implement them with few changes. Managers must also understand the difference between helping and coaching employees. Helping means working with the employee and doing part of the work if necessary. Coaching means acting as a resource, teaching, guiding, and recommending, but not participating actively or doing the task. The central idea of MBO is that employees need to motivate themselves, not management. Employee input and expectations are important. Problems can arise when management uses MBO as a strategy for forcing managers and workers to commit to goals that are not agreed on together, but are instead set by top management. Victor Froome identified the importance of employee expectations and developed a process called expectancy theory. Let's examine this concept next. Meeting employee expectations, expectancy theory. According to Victor Froome's expectancy theory, employee expectations can affect motivation. That is, the amount of effort employees are willing to exert on a specific task depends on their expectations of the outcome. Froome contends that employees ask 3 questions before committing their maximum effort to a task. 1. Can I accomplish the task? 2. If I do accomplish it, what's my reward? 2. If I do accomplish it, what's my reward? 3. Is the reward worth the effort? See Figure 10.6. Figure 10.6. Expectancy theory. The amount of effort employees exert on a task depends on their expectations of the outcome. Task. Can I accomplish the task? Yes. Outcome. Is the reward worth it? Yes. Motivated. If you were to say no to either one of those questions, you would not be motivated. Think of the effort you might exert in class under the following conditions. Your instructor says that to earn an A, you must achieve an average of 90% on coursework plus jump 8 feet high. Would you go all out toward an A if you knew you could not possibly jump 8 feet high? Your instructor said any student can earn an A, but you know your instructor has not awarded an A in over 25 years. If the reward of an A seems unattainable, would you put forth significant effort in the course? Better yet, let's say you read online that businesses prefer hiring C- students to A+ students. Does the reward of an A seem worth it? Now think of similar situations that may occur on the job. Expectancy.
Expectancy theory does note that expectation varies from individual to individual. Employees establish their own views of task difficulty and the value of the reward. Researchers David Nadler and Edward Lawler modified Vroom's theory and suggested that managers follow 5 steps to improve employee performance. Determine what rewards employees value. Learn each employee's desired performance standard. 3. Ensure that performance standards are attainable. 4. Guarantee rewards tied to performance. 5. Be certain that employees consider the rewards adequate. Page 262. Treating employees fairly. Equity theory. Equity theory looks at how employees' perceptions of fairness affect their willingness to perform. It assumes employees ask, if I do a good job, will it be worth it? And what's fair? Employees try to maintain equity between what they put into the job and what they get out of it, comparing those inputs and outputs to those of others in similar positions. Employees try to maintain equity between what they put into the job and what they get out of it, comparing those inputs and outputs to those of others in similar positions. Workers find comparative information through personal relationships, professional organizations, and other sources. When workers perceive inequity, they will try to reestablish fairness in a number of ways. For example, suppose you compare the grade you earned on a term paper with your classmates' grades. If you think you received a lower grade than someone who put out the same effort as you may 1. Reduce your effort on future class projects, or 2. Rationalize the difference by saying grades are overvalued anyway. If you think your paper received a higher grade than comparable papers, you will probably 1. Increase your effort to justify the higher reward in the future, or 2. Rationalize by saying I'm worth it. In the workplace, perceived inequity may lead to lower productivity, reduced quality, increased absenteeism, and voluntary resignation. Remember that equity judgments are based on perception and are therefore subject to error. When workers overestimate their own contributions, as happens often, they feel any rewards given out of their performance are inequitable. Sometimes, organizations try to deal with this by keeping employee salaries secret, but secrecy may make things worse. Employees are likely to overestimate the salaries of others, in addition to overestimating their own contribution. A recent study conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics showed workers often overestimate their own product. A recent study conducted by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics showed workers often overestimate their own productive hours by 10%. The best remedy is generally clear and frequent communication. Managers must communicate as clearly as possible, both the results they expect and the outcomes that will occur. Test prep. Briefly describe the managerial attitudes behind theories X, Y, and Z. Explain goal-setting theory, evaluate expectancy theory. Evaluate expectancy theory. When could expectancy theory apply to your efforts or lack of effort? Explain the principles of equity theory. Putting theory into action. LO 10-7. Show how managers put motivation theories into action through such strategies as job enrichment, open communication, and job recognition. Now that you know what a few theorists have to say about motivation, you might be asking yourself, okay, so what? What do all these theories have to do with what really goes on at work now? Fair question. Let's look at how companies put these theories into action through job enrichment, open communication, and job recognition. Motivating through job enrichment. Managers have extended both Maslow's and Herzberg's theories through job enrichment, a strategy that motivates workers through the job itself. Work is assigned so that individuals can complete an identifiable task from beginning to end and are held responsible for successful achievement. Job enrichment is based on Herzberg's higher motivators such as responsibility, achievement, and recognition. It stands in contrast to job simplification, which produces task efficiency by breaking a job into simple steps and assigning people to each step. Review Maslow's and Herzberg's work to see how job enrichment grew from those theories. Page 263. Those who advocate job enrichment believe that 5 characteristics of work are important in motivation and performance. 1. Skill variety, the extent of which a job demands different skills. 2. Task identity, the degree to which the job requires doing a task with a visible outcome from beginning to end. 3. Task significance, the degree to which the job has a substantial impact on the lives or work of others in the company. Task significance, the degree to which the job has a substantial impact on the lives or work of others in the company. 4. Autonomy, the degree of freedom, independence, and discretion in scheduling work and determining procedures. 5. Feedback, the amount of direct and clear information given about job performance. Marianne Purdy and Getty Images. Glass blowers like this use a variety of dangerous tools to create vibrant works of art. One of the hallmarks of job enrichment is the worker's ability to perform a complete task from beginning to end. Why do you think this might be more motivating than simply adding a few parts to a product on an assembly line? Variety, identity, and significance contribute to the meaningfulness of the job. Autonomy gives people a feeling of responsibility. Feedback contributes to a feeling of achievement and recognition. One type of job enrichment is job enlargement, which combines a series of tasks into one challenging and interesting assignment. When appliance manufacturer Maytag redesigned its washing machine production process, employees went from just adding one single part to assembling the entire water pump. This made the task less dull and more interesting to employees. Job rotation also makes work more interesting and motivating by moving employees from one job to another. One problem, of course, is the need to train employees to do several different operations. However, the resulting increase in motivation and the value of having flexible cross-trained employees usually offset the costs. Motivating through open communication. Communication and information must flow freely throughout the organization when employees are empowered to make decisions. They can't make them in a vacuum. Procedures for encouraging open communication include the following. Create an organizational culture that rewards listening. Top managers must create places to talk and show employees that talking with superior matters by providing feedback. Top managers must create places to talk and show employees that talking with superiors matter by providing feedback, adopting employee suggestions, and rewarding upward communication, even if the discussion is negative. Employees must have the freedom to say anything they deem appropriate and believe their opinions are valued. Train supervisors and managers to listen. Most people do not receive training in how to listen in school or anywhere else, so organizations must do such training themselves or hire an expert to do it. Use effective questioning techniques. We get information through questioning. Different kinds of questions yield different kinds of information. Closed questions that generate yes, no answers don't encourage the longer, more thoughtful responses that open questions do. Appropriate personal questions can create a sense of camaraderie between employee and manager. Remove barriers to open communication, separate offices, parking areas, bathrooms, and dining rooms. For managers, only set up barriers. Separate offices, parking areas, bathrooms, and dining rooms. For managers, only set up barriers. Other barriers are different dress codes and different ways of addressing one another, like calling workers by their first names and managers by their last. Removing these types of barriers may require creativity as well as managers' willingness to give up special privileges. Avoid vague and ambiguous communication. Passive voice appears weak and tentative. Statements such as mistakes were made leave you wondering who made the mistakes. Hedging is another way managers send garbled messages. Terms like possibly and perhaps sound wishy-washy to employees who are seeking definitive direction. Make it easy to communicate, encouraging organization members to eat together at large lunch tables, allowing employees to gather in conference rooms. Having organizational picnics and athletic teams, and so on, can help workers at all levels mix with one another. Ask employees what is important to them. Managers shouldn't wait until the exit interview to ask an employee, "What can I do to keep you?" At that point, it's too late. Instead, they should have frequent stay interviews to find out what matters to employees and what they can do to keep them on the job. Page 264, Applying Open Communication in Self-Managed Teams. Auto companies are often praised for good practices. At Ford Motor Company, for example, a group known as Team Mustang set the guidelines for how production teams should be formed. Given the challenge to create a car that would make people dust off their old Mustang Sally records and dance into showrooms, the 400-member team was also given the freedom to make decisions without waiting for approval from headquarters. Everyone worked under one roof in an old warehouse where drafting experts sat next to accountants, engineers next to stylists. Budgetary walls between departments were knocked down too, as department managers were persuaded to surrender some control over their employees on the team. Charles Rex Arbogast and AP Images. In the car business, nothing works quite like the wow factor. At Ford, the 400-member Team Mustang group was empowered to create a car that would wow everyone on the road. The work team, suppliers, company managers, and even customers worked together to make the Mustang a winner in a very competitive automobile market. The work team, suppliers, company managers, and even customers worked together to make the Mustang a winner in the very competitive automobile market. How did working across departments motivate employees on Team Mustang? When the resulting Mustang convertible displayed shaking problems, engineers were so motivated to finish on time and under budget that they worked late into the night, sleeping on the floor when necessary. Senior Ford executives were tempted to intervene, but they stuck with their promise not to meddle. Working with suppliers, the team solved the shaking problem and still came in under budget, and a couple of months early. The new car was a hit with drivers and sales soared. To implement such teams, managers at most companies must reinvent work. This means respecting workers, providing interesting work, developing worker skills, allowing autonomy, decentralizing authority, and rewarding good work. Let's take a look at some of the ways companies recognize and reward good work. Recognizing a job well done. A recent survey indicated that the top reason employees voluntarily left their jobs was due to disengagement. However, lack of appreciation did not follow too far behind. Letting people know you appreciate their work is usually more powerful than giving a raise or bonus alone. More and more recent college graduates report salary is not their ultimate motivator. Yes, they needed enough money to cover their basic needs. However, the majority of participants rated career advancement opportunities as well as interesting and challenging work to be the most important things. Clearly, providing advancement opportunities and recognizing achievements are important in attracting and retaining valuable, engaged employees. Promotions aren't the only way to celebrate a job well done. Recognition can be as simple as noticing positive actions out loud, making employees feel their efforts, making employees feel their efforts are worthwhile and valued enough to be noticed. For example, Serena, you didn't say much in the meeting today. Your ideas are usually so valuable. I missed hearing them. This comment lets Serena know her ideas are appreciated, and she'll be more apt to participate fully in the next meeting. Page 265. Here are just a few examples of ways managers have raised employee spirits without raising paychecks. A Los Angeles law firm sent 400 employees and their families to Disneyland for the day. FedEx office did something similar, but it sent high-achieving employees to Disneyland and put the company's top executives in those employees' place while they were gone. Walt Disney World offers more than 150 employee recognition programs. The Spirit of Fred Award is named after an employee named Fred, who makes each award a certificate mounted and varnished on a plaque himself. Fred's name became an acronym for friendly, resourceful, enthusiastic, and dependable. Maritz Motivation Solution in Fenton, Missouri, has a Thanks a Bunch program that gives flowers to a selected employee in appreciation of a job well done. That employee passes the bouquet to someone else who helped. The idea is to see how many people are given the flowers throughout the day. The bouquet comes with thank you cards that are entered into a drawing for awards like binoculars and jackets. Hewlett-Packard HP bestows its Golden Banana Award for a job well done. The award started when an engineer burst into his manager's office saying he'd found the solution to a long-standing problem. In his haste to find something to give the employee to show his appreciation, the manager grabbed a banana from his lunch and said, "Well done, congratulations." The Golden Banana is now one of the most prestigious honors given to an inventive HP employee. Pitashka and Shutterstock. Rather than giving out boring certificates or plaques, Hewlett-Packard awards Golden Bananas to show its appreciation to exceptional employees. What role do you think these awards play in motivating the winners to continue their outstanding performance? Giving valued employees prime parking spots, more vacation days, and more flexible schedules may help them feel their work is meaningful and appreciated. But sometimes nothing inspires workers like the prospect of a payout down the road. Companies that offer a small equity stake or stock options often have a good chance of developing local employees. Companies that offer a small equity stake or stock options often have a good chance of developing loyal employees. The Adapting to Change box discusses The Adapting to Change box discusses how some organizations utilize artificial intelligence technology to identify and address workplace issues in order to keep employees. The same things don't motivate all employees. Next, we'll explore how employees from different cultures and generations are motivated in different ways. Personalizing motivation, LO 10-8, show how managers personalize motivation strategies to appeal to employees across the globe and across generations. Managers cannot use one motivational formula for all employees. They need to get to know each other. They need to get to know each worker personally and customize the motivational effort to the individual. This is further complicated by the increase in global business and the fact that managers now work with employees from a variety of cultural backgrounds. Cultural differences also exist between generations raised in the same country. Let's look at how managers personalize their strategies to appeal to employees across the globe and across generations. Motivating employees across the globe. Different cultures experience motivational approaches differently. Therefore, managers study and understand these cultural factors in designing a reward system. In a high-context culture, workers build personal relationships and develop group trust before focusing on tasks. In a low-context culture, workers often view relationship building as a waste of time that diverts attention from the task. According to research, generally Koreans, Italians, and Saudis tend to be high-context workers who often view their U.S. colleagues as insincere due to their need for data and quick decision-making. Page 266. Adapting to change, using AI to predict the changing tides in the workplace. Have you ever wondered what was going on in someone else's head? Many managers certainly wish they had a clear idea of their staff's opinions about the workplace. They need to know what keeps employees going, what causes them to disengage, and ultimately what makes workers happy. While they may not be able to read their employees' minds, they now have more tools to help track the mood around the office. Artificial intelligence AI technology like HR Signal gives managers key insights into their staff's behavior through pattern recognition that analyzes an employee's work and interactions with colleagues and managers. HR Signal can predict if someone is feeling burned out or even if they plan on quitting, using AI to detect biased language and company communications while also keeping a close eye on tension in the workplace can help prevent problems before they have a chance to start. Additionally, HR Signal can help guide an employee toward possible promotions by directing them to new certifications to obtain or projects to take part in. Additionally, HR Signal can help guide an employee toward possible promotions by directing them to new certifications to obtain or projects to take part in. Meta, MoreWorks, and iStock, and Getty Images Plus, and Getty Images. Managers won't always know what motivates and engages their employees unless they go digging for it. And tools like AI help explore beneath the surface. By utilizing this technology, managers can let the software do the digging and instead spend more time fostering good relationships with staff. Managers can be alerted to when there is a need for human intervention or stay interviews. Thanks to non-human data collection, while there is rightfully some distrust surrounding AI and its predictive capabilities, 56% of respondents in a Fortune survey claimed they felt AI helped their communication with fellow teammates and management. While there is rightfully some distrust surrounding AI and its predictive capabilities, 56% of respondents in a Fortune survey claimed they felt AI helped their communication with fellow teammates and management. It will be interesting to see if that number rises or falls in the coming years. Sources: Catherine Shu. HR Signal helps companies figure out who is more likely to quit and why. TechCrunch.com, March 2nd, 2023. AJ Hess. Can AI actually predict when an employee is going to quit? Fastcompany.com, March 10th, 2023. Francois Candelin. Shervin Kodobende and Remy Lan. AI empowers employees, not just companies. Here's how leaders can spread that message. Fortune.com, November 4th, 2022. Sam Blum. Employee turnover is expensive. An algorithm could help and also hurt. HRBrew.com, February 28th, 2023. The Hershey Company solved a cross-cultural problem with a recognition program for its 21,000 employees in 17 countries, all of whom use a wide variety of languages and currencies. Workplace recognition giant WorkHuman revamped and introduced a new rewards program for Hershey called Smiles that automatically adjusts for differences created by cultural preferences, tax laws, and even local standards of living. The points-based system allows for rewards to be redeemed for thousands of products and gift card options, depending on where the employee is based. The system allows for both managers and employees to send smiles, and in the program's first week, almost 9% of the entire company was recognized for good work. Some employees recognized for the very first time. Understanding motivation in global organizations and building effective global teams are still new tasks for most companies. Developing group leaders who are culturally astute, flexible, and able to deal with ambiguity is a challenge today's businesses face. Motivating employees across generations. Members of each generation, baby boomers born between 1946 and 1964. Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980. Generation Y, better known as millennials, born between 1980 and 1995. Generation Z, born from 1995 to 2009. And Generation Alpha, born after 2010, are linked through experiences they shared in their formative years, usually the first 10 years of life. Note, the year spans for Generation X, Y, and Z are widely debated, so these dates are approximations. The beliefs you accept as a child affect how you view risk, challenge, authority, technology, relationships, and economics. When you're in a management position, they can even affect whom you hire, fire, or promote. Page 267. In general, boomers were raised in families that experienced unprecedented economic prosperity, secure jobs, and optimism about the future. Generation Xers were raised in dual career families with caregivers who focused on work. As children, they attended daycare or became latchkey kids. Their caregivers' layoffs added to their insecurity about a lifelong job. Millennials were raised by indulgent caregivers, and most don't remember a time without the internet and mobile phones. Gen Zers grew up post 9/11 in the wake of the Great Recession and amid countless reports of school violence. The main constant in the lives of Gen Xers, Millennials, and Gen Zers is inconstancy. Consider the unprecedented change in the past 20 years in every area, i.e., important example, economic, technological, scientific, social, and political. Gen Xers, Millennials, and Gen Zers instinctively expect change. It is the absence of change that they find questionable. How do generational differences among these groups affect motivation in the workplace? Groups affect motivation in the work. How do generational differences among these groups affect motivation in the workplace? Boomer managers need to be flexible with their younger employees, or they will lose them. Gen Xers need to use their enthusiasm for change and streamlining to their advantage. Although many are unwilling to pay the same price for success their parents or other caregivers and grandparents did, their concern about undue stress and long hours doesn't mean they lack ambition. They want economic security as much as older workers, but they have a different approach to achieving it. Rather than focusing on job security, Gen Xers tend to focus on career security instead and are willing to change jobs to find it. Gen Xers managers are well equipped to motivate people. They usually understand that there is more to life than work, and they think a big part of motivating is letting people know you recognize that fact. Gen X managers tend to focus more on results than on the number of hours worked to achieve said outcome. They tend to be flexible and good collaborators. They often think in broader terms than their boomer predecessors because the media exposed them to problems around the world. They also have a big impact on their team members. They are more likely to give the goals and outcomes of the project and leave them alone to do their work. Drazen, Zigic, and iStock, and Getty Images Plus, and Getty Images. Millennials and Gen Zers tend to be skeptical, outspoken, and image-driven, as well as adaptable, tech-savvy employees with a sense of fun and tolerance. It is important for managers of all ages to be aware that employees from different generations will communicate in different ways. How do you think generational differences could affect this manager and employee? Perhaps the greatest asset of Gen X managers is their ability to give employees feedback, especially positive feedback. One reason might be that they expect more of it themselves. It's not uncommon for new employees to be frustrated because they haven't received feedback from their bosses since they were hired, even as little as just 2 weeks earlier. In short, managers need to realize that today's workers demand performance reviews and other forms of feedback more than the traditional 1 or 2 times a year. Today, millennials are the largest working generation, making up over 35% of the U.S. workforce. As a group, they tend to share a number of characteristics. They're often impatient, skeptical, blunt, expressive, and image-driven. Like any other generation, millennials can transform their characteristics into unique skills. For example, they tend to be adaptable, tech-savvy, able to grasp new concepts, practiced at multitasking, efficient, and tolerant. Millennials tend to place a higher value on work-life balance, expect their employers to adapt to them, not the other way around, and are more likely to rank fun and stimulation in their top 5 ideal job requirements. What do you think are the most effective strategies managers can use to motivate millennial workers? Many millennials didn't rush to find lifetime careers after graduation. They tended to job surf and weren't opposed to living with their they tended to job surf and weren't opposed to living with their careers. They tend to job surf and weren't opposed to living with their caregivers while they tested out jobs. Some of this career postponement wasn't by choice as much as a result of the state of the economy. The recession of 2008 hurt younger workers more deeply than other workers. In fact, millennials were less likely to be employed than Gen Xers or boomers were at the same age. In fact, millennials were less likely to be employed than Gen Xers or boomers were at the same age. This recession greatly increased the competition for jobs as millennials struggled to enter the job market. Boomers tried to make up lost retirement savings, and Gen Xers fought to pay mortgages and raise families. Page 268. Reuters and Alamy stock photo. Clad in his signature leather jacket, NVIDIA co-founder and CEO Jensen Huang puts his passion on full display as he encourages employees to reach their full potential at the company. Huang even has the NVIDIA logo tattooed on his arm, a show of dedication that lets staff know just how much he cares about the firm. How do you think lively bosses like Huang develop happy, productive, and loyal employees? As millennials assume greater responsibilities in the workplace and take on higher management roles, they sometimes must manage and lead others far older than themselves. How can young managers lead others who may have more experience than they do? Perhaps the three most important things to keep in mind are to be confident, be open-minded, and solicit feedback regularly. Just remember, asking for input and advice is different from asking for permission or guidance. More and more members of Gen Z are now entering the workplace. As they have entered the job market, they create a very generationally diverse workplace. This is the first time in history that the workforce consists of 4 generations. They are likely to be more cautious and security-minded, but inspired to improve the world. Since they've seen the effects of the economy firsthand, they are more aware of troubling times. A recent survey of Gen Zers shows that they believe school violence and shootings will have the biggest impact on their generation, overriding the invention of social media and the election of the nation's first black president. These events make them resilient and pragmatic. They want to confront rather than hide from their problems. Like millennials, Gen Zers are tech savvy and are looking to be part of a community within their workplaces. On the other side of that, Gen Zers are interested in more practical benefits like healthcare and 401ks, and are less likely to job hop than millennials. It is important for managers of all ages to be aware that employees of different generations communicate differently. Boomers generally prefer to communicate in meetings or conference calls. Gen Xers typically prefer email and will choose meetings only if there are no other options. Millennials most often use technology to communicate, particularly through social media. Gen Zers have trended back to face-to-face meetings and shy away from phone calls. In every generational shift, the older generation tends to say the same thing about the new. They break the rules. The traditionalists said it of the baby boomers. Boomers look at Gen Xers and say, why are they breaking the rules? And now Gen Xers and millennials are looking at Gen Zers and saying, what's wrong with these kids? And you know, Gen Z will someday join Gen X and millennials in saying the same thing about Generation Alpha. One thing in business is likely to remain constant. Most motivation will come from the job itself rather than from external punishments or rewards. Managers need to give workers what they require to do. Managers need to give workers what they require to do a good job: the right tools, the right information, and the right amount of cooperation. Motivation doesn't have to be difficult. It begins with acknowledging a job well done, and especially doing so in front of others. After all, as we said earlier, the best motivator is frequently a sincere thanks. I really appreciate what you are doing. Test prep. What are several steps firms can take to increase internal communications and thus motivation? What problems may emerge when firms try to implement participative management? Why is it important to adjust motivational styles to individual employees? Are there any general principles of motivation that today's managers should follow? Page 269. Summary. LO 10-1. Explain Taylor's theory of scientific management. What is Frederick Taylor known for? Human efficiency engineer, Frederick Taylor was one of the first people to study management and has been called the father of scientific management. He conducted time motion studies to learn the most efficient way of doing a job, and then trained workers in those procedures. He published his book, The Principles of Scientific Management, in 1911. Henry L. Gantt and Frank and Lillian Gilbreth were followers of Taylor. LO 10-2. Describe the Hawthorne studies and their significance to management. What led to the more human-based managerial styles? The greatest impact on motivation theory was generated by Hawthorne studies in the late 1920s and early 1930s. In these studies, Elton Mayo found that human factors, such as feelings of involvement and participation, led to greater productivity gains than did physical changes in the workplace. LO 10-3. Identify the levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and apply them to employee motivation. What did Abraham Maslow find human motivation to be based on? Maslow studied basic human motivation and found that motivation was based on needs. He said that a person with an unfilled need would be motivated to satisfy it, and that a satisfied need no longer served as motivation. What levels of need did Maslow identify? Starting at the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy and going to the top, the levels of need are psychological, safety, social esteem, and self-actualization. Can managers use Maslow's theory? Yes, they can recognize what unmet needs a person has and design work so that it satisfies those needs. LO 10-4. Distinguish between the motivators and hygiene factors identified by Herzberg. What is the difference between Frederick Herzberg's motivator and hygiene factors? Herzberg found that whereas some factors motivate workers, motivators, others cause job dissatisfaction. If missing, but are not motivators if present, hygiene or maintenance factors. What are the factors called motivators? The work itself, achievement, recognition, responsibility, growth, and advancement. What are the hygiene maintenance factors? Company policies, supervision, working conditions, interpersonal relationships, and salary. LO 10-5. Differentiate among Theory X, Theory Y, and Theory Z. Who developed Theory X and Theory Y? Douglas McGregor held that managers have one of two opposing attitudes toward employees. He called them Theory X and Theory Y. What is Theory X? Theory X assumes the average person dislikes work and will avoid it if possible. Therefore, people must be forced, controlled, and threatened with punishment to accomplish organizational goals. What is Theory Y? Theory Y assumes people like working and will accept responsibility for achieving goals if rewarded for doing so. What is Theory Z? William Alchi based Theory Z on Japanese management styles and stresses long-term employment, collective decision-making, individual responsibility, slow evaluation and promotion, implicit informal control with explicit formalized control, moderately specialized career paths, and a holistic concern for employees, including family. Page 270. LO 10-6. Explain the key principles of goal setting, expectancy, and equity theories. What is goal setting theory? Goal setting theory is based on the notion that setting ambitious but goal setting theory is based on the notion that setting ambitious but attainable goals will lead to higher levels of motivation and performance if the goals are accepted and accompanied by feedback, and if conditions in the organization make achievement possible. What is management by objectives MBO? MBO is a system of goal setting and implementation. It includes a cycle of discussion, review, and evaluation of objectives among top and middle-level managers. Supervisors and employees. What is the basis of expectancy theory? According to Victor Vroom's expectancy theory, employee expectations can affect an individual's motivation. What are the key elements of expectancy theory? Expectancy theory centers on three questions employees often ask about performance on the job. 1. Can I accomplish the task? 2. If I do accomplish it, what's my reward? And 3. Is the reward worth the effort? According to equity theory, employees try to maintain equity between inputs and outputs compared to other employees in similar positions. What happens when employees perceive that their rewards are not equitable? If employees perceive they are under-rewarded, they will either reduce their effort or rationalize that it isn't important. If they perceive that they are over-rewarded, they will either increase their effort to justify the higher reward in the future or rationalize by saying, I'm worth it. Inequity leads to lower productivity, reduced quality, increased absenteeism, and voluntary resignation. LO 10-7. Show how managers put motivation theories into action through such strategies as job enrichment, open communication, and job recognition. What characteristics of work affect motivation and performance? The job characteristics that influence motivation are skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. Name 2 forms of job enrichment that increase motivation. Job enlargement combines a series of tasks into one challenging and interesting assignment. Job rotation makes work more interesting by moving employees from one job to another. How does open communication improve employee motivation? Open communication helps both top managers and employees understand the objectives and work together to achieve them. How can managers encourage open communication? Managers can create an organizational culture that rewards listening, train supervisors and managers to listen. Use effective questioning techniques, remove barriers to open communication, avoid vague and ambiguous communication, and actively make it easier for all to communicate. Page 271. LO 10-8. Show how managers personalize motivation strategies to appeal to employees across the globe and across generations. What is the difference between high context and low context cultures? In high context cultures, people build personal relationships and develop group trust before focusing on tasks. In low content cultures, most people view relationships building as a waste of time that diverts attention from the task. How are Generation X managers likely to be different from their boomer predecessors? In general, baby boomers tend to be willing to work long hours to build their careers and often expect their employees to do likewise. Gen Xers may strive for a more balanced lifestyle and are likely to focus on results rather than how many hours their teams work. Gen Xers tend to be better than previous generations at working in teams and providing frequent feedback. They usually are not bound by traditions that may constrain those who have been with an organization for a long time and are willing to try new approaches to solving problems. What are some common characteristics of millennials and Gen Zers? In general, millennials tend to be adaptable, tech-savvy, able to grasp new concepts, practiced at multitasking, efficient, and tolerant. They often value a healthy work-life balance, expect their employees to adapt to them, and are more likely to rank fun and stimulation on their top 5 ideal job requirements. Gen Zers tend to be more cautious and security-minded, but inspired to improve the world. They want to confront. They want to confront rather than hide from problems. Like millennials, Gen Zers are tech savvy, place a higher value on work-life balance, and are looking to be part of a community within their workplaces. However, Gen Zers are interested in more practical benefits like healthcare and 401ks, and are less likely to job hop than millennials. Key terms: equity theory, expectancy theory, extrinsic reward, goal setting theory, Hawthorne effect, hygiene factors, intrinsic reward, job enlargement, job enrichment, job rotation, management by objectives, MBO, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, motivators, principle of motivation, principle of motion economy, scientific management, time motion studies. Critical thinking. Your job right now is to finish reading this chapter. How strongly would you be motivated to do that if you were sweating in a room at 105 degrees Fahrenheit? Imagine your roommate has turned on the air conditioning. Once you are more comfortable, are you more likely to read? Look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs to see what need would be motivating you at both times. Now recall a situation in your home, school, or work life in which you were feeling particularly motivated to do something. Which of the needs identified by Maslow's motivated you then, and why? Page 272, Putting Principles to Work. Purpose: to assess your personality type using the Jung-Briggs-Myers typology test, and to evaluate how well a description of your personality type fits you. Exercise: sometimes understanding differences in employees' personalities helps managers understand how to motivate them. Find out about your personality by going to the Human Metrics website, humanmetrics.com, and taking the Jung typology test based on Carl Jung's and Isabel Briggs-Myers' approach to typology. Disclaimer: the test, like all other personality tests, is only a rough and preliminary indicator of personality. 1. After you identify your personality type, read the corresponding personality portrait. How well or how poorly does the identified personality type fit? 2. Sometimes a personality test does not accurately identify your personality, but it may give you a place to start looking for a portrait that fits. After you have read the portraits on the website, ask a good friend or relative which one best describes you. Developing career skills. Key: team analytic, communication, and technology. 1.
Talk with several of your friends about the subject of motivation. What motivates them to what motivates them to work hard or not work hard in school and on the job? How important to them is self-motivation as opposed to external reward? 2. Look over Maslow's hierarchy of needs and try to determine where you are right now on the hierarchy. What needs of yours are not being met? How could a company go about meeting those needs and thus motivate you to work more effectively? 3. One managerial idea is to let employees work in self-managed teams. See Chapter 8. There is no reason why such teams could not be formed in colleges as well as businesses. Discuss the benefits and drawbacks of dividing your class into self-managed teams for the purpose of studying, analyzing cases, and so forth. 4. Think of all the groups with which you have been associated over the years, sports groups, friendship groups, and so on, and try to recall how the leaders of those groups motivated the group to action. Did the leaders assume a theory X or a theory Y attitude? How often was money a motivator? What other motivational tools were used and to what effect? 5. Herzberg concluded that pay was not a motivator. If you were paid to get better grades, would you be motivated to study harder? In your employment experiences, have you ever worked harder to obtain a raise or as a result of receiving a large raise? In your employment experiences, have you ever worked harder to obtain a raise or as a result of receiving a large raise? Did you agree with Herzberg about the effects of pay? Career exploration. If you are interested in pursuing a career that involves motivating others, here are a few to consider. Find out about the tasks performed, skills needed, pay, and opportunity outlook in these fields in the Occupational Outlook Handbook, OOH, at bls.gov. Coach teaches amateur or professional athletes the skills they need to succeed at their sport. Elementary, middle, and high school principal managers elementary, middle, and high school principal manages all school operations including daily school activities, coordinates curricula, oversees teachers and other school staff, and provides a safe and productive learning environment for students. Sales manager directs organizations' sales teams, sets sales goals, analyzes data, and develops training programs for organizations' sales representatives.
Page 273. Video Case 1. McGraw-Hill Connect, Enriching Employees at Taco Bell. Keeping employees motivated and happy is a key to success for many of the world's top companies, including fast food chains like Taco Bell. From GED prep to educational support to college scholarships, Taco Bell helps its employees achieve their goals in all sorts of ways. While this level of support might seem strange for a fast food chain, the company recognizes that today's workers tend to demand more from their employers. Besides collecting a paycheck, young employees also want to develop a healthy balance between their work lives and personal lives. That's why Taco Bell provides both full and part-time staffers with access to educational resources from their first day forward. For instance, the company fully funds an all-inclusive start-to-finish GED program, specially designed for its employees, along with receiving unlimited access to study materials and practice tests. The program also provides students with advisors who guide them through every step of the process. For those who have already earned a high school diploma or GED, the company offers discounted tuition and reimbursements through its Guild Education program. In partnership with 80 online universities and learning institutions, employees can choose from thousands of classes and earn certificates or degrees in many fields. This type of education program not only boosts morale and commitment, but also provides workers with a sense of intrinsic value. Employees who are pursuing other goals can apply for the company's Live Moss Scholarship Program, which grants awards as high as $25,000. Unlike other scholarships, Taco Bell doesn't require test scores or a minimum GPA in order to apply. Instead, the company wants to appeal to students who don't qualify for traditional scholarships. By removing the usual academic requirements, the program receives applications from a wide variety of highly motivated employees. Taco Bell also encourages managers to seek out and support workers who would benefit the most from its educational programs. In fact, many managers take special pride in this role since they likely received promotions thanks to the guidance of senior leaders. Managers also benefit from leadership programs where they learn all about team building and the fundamentals of management. After all, employees who feel appreciated by their superiors are more likely to stay around for the long term by taking the interests of its workers to heart. Taco Bell creates positive opportunities for the company as well as its staff. Thinking it over. 1. What are the benefits of Taco Bell's educational initiatives for both employees and the company? 2. How does Taco Bell's Live Moss Scholarship differ from traditional scholarship programs? 3. Why do many Taco Bell managers take special pride in supporting workers through the company's educational programs? Video Case 2, McGraw-Hill Connect, Work Human brings humanity to the workplace. One of the greatest challenges that managers face is keeping employees happy with their jobs and content with the organization. The rates of employee engagement, job satisfaction, and commitment to the job are very low. One workplace study uncovered the harsh fact that 38% of workers are planning to look for another job in the next year. You have probably noticed signs outside many businesses that say now hiring due to record numbers of workers who have quit their jobs. Well, rest assured, managers, one company has figured out the solution to boosting employee attitudes. It's a simple process that involves just 2 words: thank you. According to WorkHuman, a human resource software company, thanking someone is the secret to building important human connections. Thanking them says, "I saw what you did and I appreciate it." A simple statement that everyone wants to hear because it recognizes their contributions. Companies know that offering such positive reinforcement enhances employee morale and performance. However, such praise often unintentionally gets lost in the workplace shuffle. Quite often, such acknowledgement is only offered once a year at an employee's annual review and is done behind closed doors. Well, managers take notice. Help is on the way. WorkHuman has created a simple solution called social recognition. Social recognition is a platform where employees can think, celebrate, and engage within. Social recognition is a platform where employees can think, celebrate, and engage with their coworkers. Since the company was founded in 1999, its platform has attracted 6 million users across 180 countries. The process is simple. If a manager wants to thank an employee for a job well done, they send a message, or what the company refers to as a recognition moment, to the individual or team that has earned the acknowledgement. The message also gets posted on the social recognition platform and goes out to all employees in a social media style newsfeed. The platform makes thanking an employee easy and spontaneous and brings the recognition out into the open, where coworkers can also add their kudos. Page 274. Another strength of social recognition is that anyone in the organization can initiate a thank you, not just managers. Employees can directly acknowledge other employees and thank them for achievements or assistance. This peer-to-peer recognition clearly strengthens employee relationships and bonding. According to Derek Irvine of WorkHuman, organizations have found that employees who have received 5 or more recognition moments a year have developed a stronger sense of belonging with the company, and thoughts of leaving have been reduced. Social recognition also bridges the gap between diversity and inclusion by creating positive, authentic moments that make employees feel seen, celebrated, and appreciated for who they are and for what they do. Through peer-to-peer rewards, social recognition supports critical feelings of emotional support and group belonging. An employee can be thanked with a heartfelt message and also nominated for rewards with a value up to $2,000 that they can spend on the WorkHuman Rewards platform. Employees can choose from a variety of rewards such as travel, merchandise, events, and fun experiences. They can then post to other employees what they bought on the platform. It's not just employees that benefit from social recognition. Companies have found noticeable bottom-line results. Data has highlighted that an employee who has been recognized once in the last 30 days is 3.4% more engaged than employees who have not been recognized. This has translated into an increase in worker productivity by more than $1,000 and decreased propensity to leave the company. Lower turnover also saves money recruiting, hiring, and training new employees. Data can also highlight employees who are potentially ready for promotions and spot teams that are not performing well. Keeping employees happy is a never-ending challenge. Bringing more humanity to the workplace might be one part of the solution. That's what work human thinks. Thinking it over. 1. What's the major advantage of a recognition moment sent by an employee's manager? 2. How have companies benefited from data collected from the social recognition platform? 3. Why are rewards offered through the social recognition platform an important part of the peer-to-peer recognition process? Page 275. Notes. Chapter 11, Human Resource Management, Finding and Keeping the Best Employees, page 276.